You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Hey guys, Julian Green here, and welcome to The Green Room, where we talk about movies, television, and everything in between. Today we're going to be talking about the Netflix original series, all a part of Marvel's expanding universe, Luke Cage. Alright, so there's a lot to unpack for this thing, alright? So for those of you who don't know who Luke Cage is, he was created in 1972. He was pretty much this hero to reflect the blaxploitation era. So he's pretty much like a mixture of Shaft, Superfly, and everybody in between all that. Now he started off as a hero for hire, and what a hero for hire is basically how it sounds. He's a guy who pretty much gets paid to be a superhero. I mean, that's a unique spin, right? He's also best friends with Iron Fist, another character who's going to be getting his own show on Netflix later on in 2017. Okay, so Luke Cage, as soon as I heard that this was going to be a Netflix show and I heard that he was going to be in the Defenders miniseries that comes out later on, I knew that this was going to be a very important TV show to begin with. With everything that's been going on in 2016, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's been going on in the media, this show, they needed to knock it out the park and they needed to do it great. Not to mention the rising need for diversity in all these superhero films. It's safe to say that Luke Cage was one of the most anticipated TV shows of the year. It already had an uphill battle to have a compelling character that just so happened to be black and not be a character who is pretty much based all in his blackness like in the comic book, but have a character that can stand on its own and he just so happens to look like me. You know, growing up, like I always, like my favorite character is always and forever will be Spider-Man because of his relatability, but the thing about being a comic book reader, and especially being a comic book reader in the 70s and 80s, I can tell that it was kind of hard to find a black character to kind of gravitate towards. I mean, I just felt that people just went to the black characters because they were black and that was the only thing that they were going to get. Not because they were compelling, but because they were the token characters. Let's be real. But we've come a long way. It's 2016 and we have a lot more compelling actors, you know, ethnically. When that first trailer came out with, "Ooh baby, I like it raw. Ooh baby, I like it raw," I was down for the get-go. Now that I'm done with my mini little rant, let's talk about Luke Cage. So for those of you who've been keeping up with Marvel's Netflix slate of shows, the last time in Jessica Jones, we seen Luke Cage and he had this really intense relationship with her and he decided to go back to his hometown of Harlem. The show pretty much picks up where that left off, and we pick up with him in a barbershop just shooting the crap with a bunch of other dudes. And from the very get-go, you realize that the show has a style all by itself. It's not like Daredevil, it's not like Jessica Jones. It stands on its own from the setting alone. And one of the best things about this show is just the setting of Harlem. Like you can just feel the authenticity just kind of like drip off of the screen, and you can, like, just from the opening scene of him hanging out in a barbershop, just talking about Pat Riley, sports, movies, just regular stuff. It's exactly how a barbershop would feel, and more specifically, it's exactly how a black barbershop would be. I still go to black barbershops all the time to get my haircut, and it's exactly like that. But to see it done in Harlem, to see another side and a different culture of people talking about it, it's really awesome to kind of check out. But you could tell that Harlem, the city itself, has like its own culture. Like for those of you who don't know, it was the center of the Harlem Renaissance. It's still considered one of the greatest pinnacles of art, progressiveness today. So for them to capture it so perfectly like this, it was just amazing to see. So good job, Netflix, for pulling this out. The characters are really great. Like they feel really natural and organic, and they feel like this city feels like it's been lived in, that it's been through a lot and that it's still going through a lot. Here we meet Luke Cage, who is just a man just trying to lay low. He's a dishwasher by night and he sweeps dust at the barbershop during the day. He doesn't want anything to do with being a hero, despite these abilities that he may have. Usually you would think that a character who has these special abilities, they will just jump right into supervillainy or superheroics right away. But Luke Cage, despite this, he's the guy who just wants to run away from all this and lead a normal life with nobody bothering him. And that's really cool to see a character have. Like to have a character who actually wants nothing to do with their powers. It's very refreshing to see in this show. But there are some things that start to happen that kind of like thrust him into a situation that he has no choice but to get out of. Mike Coulter gives a great performance in this role. He commands every scene that he's in. His presence is like you're always drawn to it. You're always like waiting to see what he's gonna say or what he's gonna do. And it's really cool that he was able to bring the character of Luke Cage to life. His traits, his more defining ones, is that he's a big like poetry fan and he reads a lot of books. He's really embedded into the history of Harlem. He could tell you who Crispus Attucks was. He could tell you who Norrisdale Hurston was. This dude can read you a monologue from a poem and he would do it with no hesitation whatsoever. He loves his city. He loves the culture of the city and he wants the best for this city. He also portrays this vulnerability where he knows that he must do something, but he doesn't want to compromise who he is and what he's trying to do, which is pretty much stay out of sight. So right from the get-go, we have this conflict of who this character is and where he's coming from. And enter the villain of the story, Cottonmouth. Now, Netflix has done a good job of having very compelling villains through all their Netflix shows. We had Kingpin from Daredevil, and we also have the amazing Kilgrave from Jessica Jones. Now, Cottonmouth, you know, from the very get-go, he seems like this regular gangster. Like, we've seen it before, the guy who wears nice suits and he sits and he tells people what to do. But the more the series goes on, there's a lot more to unpack with his character. We realize that he's a man of honor, he's a man with a code, and he's a man who pretty much knows how the structure works in Harlem. He wants to see Harlem do great as well. He's not just a villain who's trying to destroy everything. He's trying to create something for his people, but he does it through illegal means because he believes that this is what he has to do. And then when you see his backstory as to how he got to where he was and the person that he was before, no spoilers, but it informs exactly the decisions that he's making, and it informs the place of where he is right now. And Cottonmouth is like just a great blend of ruthlessness, and just every time he's on screen, like honestly, he commands the scene just as much as Mike Coulter's Luke Cage does. When somebody wrongs him and he just kind of gives them a look and he's just kind of like waiting to get like it's all in his eyes. Mahershala Ali has a great way of portraying things with his eyes. So you can just look at them and tell him if he's angry or if he's thinking about something else a little bit more sinister, or if he's sad or whatever. It's all right there, and it's really cool. You have other characters too, like Cottonmouth's cousin, who is the councilwoman in the city of Harlem. Her name is Mariah Dillard. She's played by Effort Woodard, who also played the woman who blamed Tony Stark in Civil War for killing her son in Sokovia. They made it very clear that this is not the same character. Now, this was a character I really felt a disconnect with, because I understand that her being the cousin of Cottonmouth, who's a gangster who supplies her political chain, it's really like, the political stuff really lost me a little bit. I mean, she spends most of the series just kind of saying how she doesn't want to get her hands dirty and how she's not really a gangster and how she wants the best of Harlem, which she may as well have the best intentions for Harlem. But the thing about her is that she spends so much time saying that she doesn't want to get her hands dirty, and everyone else spends so much time saying that she's just as ruthless as Cottonmouth, but you never really see that, and it really comes out of nowhere when that ruthlessness eventually comes out. For those of you who've seen the show, you know what scene I'm talking about. When that comes out, it just kind of feels like, I'm not going to say out of nowhere because I know why she does what she does, but at the same time, they don't do anything to set up this ruthlessness. It's not like in most characters who seem good, but then there's like a progression of effects that pretty much push them over the edge. There is no progression of effects that push them over there. It's just this one moment in her life from way long ago that just out of nowhere just bubbles up to the surface, and then she just explodes. So that scene was very ineffective to me, and her character is really ineffective to me because they wait so long to say who she is going to be, and when she is finally that, it's very jarring and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know if it was her acting or if it was the writing of her character, but it felt like that the show was trying to make her a main villain, but they just kept forgetting and they just kept giving her scenes to say, oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty. So Mariah Dillard, politician, doesn't really work for me. It might work for other people, but a lot of stuff that she does just doesn't connect. We also have some of the great supporting characters. Theo Rossi, who's playing Shades, a character who's very ambiguous, and he's a very cool character. He gets a lot of cool lines, he gets a lot of cool moments, but he doesn't really get a lot of character development on his part. He also has a relationship with Luke Cage, but you really don't understand that relationship or why that relationship must continue. But the show does it, and you're just happy to see Theo Rossi act, so that's fine. But as for the plot, you know, it's the show has two separate plots, and this is one of its big plot holes. And this is one of the big problems with the show, is that it seems like it has two separate plots where it right in the middle of the season, they just kind of like cut this one subplot along and then they move ahead with another one. I think that what they should have done was that it would have been great if they would have used just the first plot that they were doing and finish it out through the season, and then use the second plot to have a completely different thing in the second season. Or you could have just switched them around. Either way, they're both great plots, it's just they're both completely different plots. So from the way the show starts, it's completely different from the way the show ends. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't like the way the show ended, it's just it's kind of hard to say that the show is better than a Daredevil or better than a Jessica Jones, because the thing that those shows had going for it was that it had an ultimate through line throughout the whole thing. Daredevil needed to defeat the Kingpin. Got it? Let's move on. Jessica Jones needed to defeat Kilgrave. Got it? Let's go on. Whereas this one, it's like it starts off one way and then it just skews off into another thing. Now, without giving spoilers, there's another villain in this show that's very, very great. Just as good as Cottonmouth, but like I said, it's just the disconnect happens when the two plots get separated, and that's the show's biggest flaw. But that is not enough to hide the fact that the setting of Harlem, the other characters that they gave, the rich character development that we get from all these characters, and the great performances all around the entire cast, with the exception of Alfred Woodard as Mariah Dillard, it's still a great show to watch. And I'm gonna be real with you really quick. This show, I believe, is one of the most important shows to come out in a long time. The reason why is because, for the sake of waiting for a diverse cast to come out in a superhero movie, or, you know, the whole Oscar so white or the Black Lives Matter movement, this show came at exactly the right time. And we'll see later on down the line if this show kind of like remains the most important show, or if it's just something that came along at the right time. We don't want it to go 20 years from now and the show is just a product of the era that it came out. Let's see that it can stand on its own legs and see that this show is something important and something that's going to last and something that has meaning. Because growing up as a black person, it's hard to find a black superhero to actually relate to other than Black Panther and Storm. But to have this character in this climate, the whole thing that he walks around wearing a hoodie. And I remember the showrunner saying that he's wearing a hoodie because it proves that not every black person in a hoodie is bad. And I think that's a beautiful statement to do. One of the best things about this is that we get a superhero of color who is bulletproof and he's a hero. Like that to me is just incredible. It's amazing. And you know, what I really love about this is that it was a cast that was mostly black, with a few white people in there sprinkled in. And I noticed that a lot of people are getting upset about it. And I understand your worry. Like, you can say that it's racism, you can say that it's reverse racism, you can say whatever you want. But now you know how it feels when I watch a movie and the Avengers are all white people, with the exception of Samuel Jackson, because Samuel Jackson is just in everything. So, not to get more political, but this movie, the show is itself political, and it was just like the comic book. The comic book was very not too true to how black people were back in the day. I mean, Luke Cage was a pimp. Okay, he was a straight pimp. If you would look at that costume, that dude is a pimp walking around singing Sweet Sister and Sweet Christmas and things like that. Whereas this show is trying to bring him to the modern era, and you can't do that without actually having the actual things that are happening right now. Luke Cage is definitely a joy to watch. It is amazing. It's incredible. Out of a 10, I would give season 1 a 9.5, because there's some things that, like Mariah Dillard and the plot splitting in half, it's very jarring and it's very weird, but at the same time, it doesn't knock the importance and the character richness and just the setting of Harlem in all its awesomeness. All right, guys, so have you seen Luke Cage? Have you not seen Luke Cage? Once again, let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys have any other things you want me to talk about, if you guys want to just have a conversation about Luke Cage and the diversity that's supposed to be in superhero movies and movies in general, we'll talk about that as well. All right, guys, just remember, I'm a dude in this room talking to a camera. Love you. And